We are going to do a central line placement with Scott Weingart, and this is not going to be the entire central line. This is going to be the most critical step of the central line that we are not taught much as we learn this procedure, but we'll find out why it's something we should pay more attention to. And so what we're going to do are master skills, but even more importantly, micro skills of central venous cannulation.
Yeah, I don't know about you, Rob, but I was never taught how to actually do the real steps of central line placement during residency training. It wasn't until after I went back at the 10-year mark and did an ECMO fellowship that the vascular surgeons finally taught me how to place big lines. And what you realize is you're doing it wrong, but you get away with it because it's these tiny little 7 French things.
Shall we do it?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. And here's how we do it.
Yes,
right?
so notice
Kinda
the
like
first tip here is Rob threw something on the floor.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to do central lines unless you're throwing items on the floor.
Here you go.
Thank you.
All right. So we got the warning indicator. I don't know what it's warning us against.
Yep.
All right.
Now, what is Rob already doing wrong? Now, Rob, what hand is dominant on you?
It's my right hand.
Yeah, so this has to be here. So always position your trays on your dominant hand. This allows you to maintain, for instance, needle in the vessel with your non-dominant and actually get your stuff without doing this or this.
All right. Now, I've got this guy here. We're not going to do a sterile
we'll eliminate sterility for the
prep.
sake of this.
All right, what are the key things I need to prepare? There's a bunch of stuff in here. What is essential?
So my residents take like a half hour to do central lines, and they're very skilled, and the problem is they prep stuff they don't need to prep. So the 3 things you need on every line, for instance, a crash central line, is you need your needle and syringe.
Needle and syringe.
Just take off that cap. Great. You need a wire ready for you.
Okay, wire.
Take off that little thing on the tip.
Little
Yeah,
cap
pull
off
it back.
here.
Great.
Hang on, it's a little stuck. Here we go.
And now you need the port off your distal segment of your line if you're using a triple lumen. And that's
All right.
the brown on this one.
Little brownie
Leave
here.
that in the tray.
Okay. Leave that in the tray.
Great.
It's not
And that's
sterile.
it. That's all you have to prep. Now, if the patient has pain perception, then you want to get local anesthesia ready as well. But don't flush your lines. Don't do all sorts of stuff. Don't put on the blue caps now. That's all wasting time. That could all be handled after you get the line in. This is all you need.
All right. Let's start our procedure here. I've got my ultrasound probe.
Of course.
Going here.
Great.
Oh, we're not getting
That's
a lot.
fine.
We're good. There we
that's
go.
good for this purpose. All right, now.
Okay.
Now let's see what. Now, Rob, this is actually pretty good. Now, what I see people doing all the time is they do the air stabilization thing. If there's any patient movement or hand movement, that's it. You're going to lose that needle tip in the vessel. So lock yourself to the patient. I prefer an overhand grip, and just like I'm playing pool, when I'm going to do a pool bridge, I will put my hypothenar eminence on the patient and stabilize that way. And now I am holding so tightly that if you smack my hand, it should move, with the patient, but the needle tip itself should not move out of the vessel.
Okay.
So you did that quite nicely, Rob.
So I'm holding here and start feeding my wire. It's stuck. It's stuck.
Yeah, it's okay, Robbie. You know what to do.
Oh, son of a bitch.
All right, so this is, he did it. Now let's show them what you did. So if you ever lose the little blue thing, lock the wire with your pinky and ring finger, and then advance the outer core of the wire to straighten your tip. And Rob did that quite adroitly. Run with it, buddy.
That's the word of the day. Okay, here we go.
You got it, dude. I have faith in you.
It's like limber tail.
Yep. All right, it wasn't pretty, but it got the job done. All right,
I've got some resistance here.
Let's show it even better. Can you run the videotape?
What happens when you push against resistance? Notice the watch.
All right, so this is arterial, obviously, but it's the same thing for venous. All right, now they're going easy, going easy.
Pull that off.
And now they're meeting resistance. Now, what you could do is push through it, because that works out well for you. But they're going to keep going.
There it is.
Now, what just happened? Well, let's show them what it's going to look like when it comes out, and then we'll talk about what happened.
Pushing against resistance.
Yep.
And there wasn't much resistance at that time.
No, it doesn't take a lot. All right, so you got a fully kinked wire, and now if you try to dilate against that, you're going to be hosed. You can't push against resistance, and sometimes you feel it and you think it's just a needle tip up against the vessel wall, and if you push a little bit further, it's going to work, and fine, you're going to gain skill at that. But in general, if you're hitting resistance, come out, readjust your wire angle, readjust where the J-tip's pointing, give it a little rotation, go back in. Don't push against resistance, because if it goes and you feel good about yourself, you might have just punctured the back wall of your vessel. Now, these are flimsy wires. They'll kink instead of puncture most of the time. As you get thicker wires, you'll get past the resistance, and you'll do it at the expense of the aorta or the IVC. So any resistance, pull back, and then go in again. All right, Rob. But now you'll be able to do it easily.
Okay.
Rob, what are you doing, man? No. So these wires, stop. Okay. So these wires they're more than long enough that you should never have that little wire out. They always are sized so a significant portion of the wire is out. So, you should be, enough of the wire out so that when you put the actual line on, you don't have to do much of that, feeding the wire back. So generally this much out for something like a central line.
Okay, now I'm happy with this.
Yeah, that looks good.
I'm gonna take my needle out.
All right.
Sharp.
All right, now we're gonna get to the scalpel nick. So let's see that.
Can I let go of my wire?
You
Is
could.
that safe?
Honestly, the magical sucking into the vessel doesn't happen, but it's paradigmatically good to keep that foremost in your mind, because it's a good basic idea to not have evil happen. So always have a hand on a wire is not true, but it's useful.
Okay, here we go.
All right, very reasonable nick. Notice he's actually scalpel blade facing the ceiling. He's using the tip of the 11 blade to make his nick.
Okay.
Now, you got to check your work. And this is really the first key move here, is I see people dilating at this point. The problem is, very frequently, there'll be a skin bridge between where you made your scalpel nick and where the wire's actually entering from the needle. And that skin bridge, when you try to dilate against it, will just destroy your dilator tip, potentially kink the wire. So you have to check your work. How do you check your work, Rob? Yeah, so Rob's making a circle with his wire, and what you want to see is the nick you just made, you want to see it moving within that circle. If you try to rotate the wire and it's not even close to the nick, then you have to make your nick again. Let's see the videotape on this. All right, so there's the nick, and then you rotate the wire in the nick you just made. And if it rotates inside the nick, you know you're in good shape. If not, you got to recut with your scalpel.
Okay, so if you have a skin bridge, recut.
Recut, exactly right. All right, now we're up to dilation. And this is where I see a lot of EM, critical care folks messing it up, because we were never taught the right steps of dilation. All right, now Rob's pushing, and now there's many things wrong with what Rob's doing. The first thing is, look at where he's holding. He's way back from the skin. This is going to cause bends in your actual dilator, and all of your force, if there's any resistance here, is going to be transmission to the shaft of the dilator instead of the tip, which is where you want it. So let's readjust your grip. Yeah, so now you're close. You're about an inch, a couple centimeters away, and I prefer to bunch my 3 fingers.
Dominant hand?
Yep, dominant hand on the dilator, and then aim my index finger where I want it to go. And this allows me to do gentle little pushes along the wire. Now, Rob, when he started, had an angle like this for the sake of this example. Now, that's also problematic. You want to match your dilator angle to the needle entry angle. And generally, I'm going at a 45-degree angle on my needle entry, so the dilator is always going to stay at a 45-degree angle. We have a tendency to move angles as we're dilating, and that will destroy the wire.
Is it possible while we're, and I don't know if it is, while we're doing this, while we're operating on this, to get the live feed on the big screen of this cannulation?
Oh, they're not seeing it?
No, they're just seeing that.
Oh,
seeing
God,
right there.
yeah.
Can everybody see that?
Yep.
Okay, all right.
All right. So now,
right.
what Rob is going to do from this point forward is he's going to go and push in a centimeter at a time, and if he meets resistance, he's going to do what's called racking. I don't know why this is called that in the vascular, when I was taught by vascular surgeons. That's how they described it. I can't find it in a dictionary anywhere. But racking is a gentle insertion, pull, 1 centimeter in, 1 centimeter out. What that tells you is that the wire is moving freely in the vessel, that your dilator has not jammed the tip of that dilator against the vessel wall. If you try to dilate when it's jammed, you could puncture the back wall of the vessel or kink your wire. So now Rob's only going to advance further on the dilator if he's able to rack. So 1 centimeter at a time, check, go in.
I can't. It's actually a lot of resistance right now.
Okay, when you reach resistance and you can no longer rack, then you need to pull back on your dilator because you're right up against the vessel wall. You're about to back wall and kink. And now, adjust your angle, make sure you're still at 45, and see if you can still rack now. And now you're allowed to go in. If you're reaching resistance and you can still rack, you're allowed to go further. If you're reaching resistance and you cannot rack, you cannot go further on your dilator. You need to pull back on your dilator, readjust, and try again.
Okay, want to do some review?
Yeah, let's do a little review, and then we'll go into some other stuff. All right, so there's the push. You're pushing till you reach resistance.
Oh my God.
And now you're racking to check if the resistance is something you can push through or you have to stop and readjust.
Thanks, bud.
So that's key, is push and rack. That's
Next
step
slide, Jeff.
one micro skill. Now look, dilator angle, go back one. Dilator angle equals wire angle. If you entered at 30 degrees, you can't dilate at 90 degrees. You're going to kink your wire. One more forward. All right, and notice overhand grip close to the skin that allows you to put that gentle force and reminds you cognitively you're only going in 1 centimeter at a time. Now, you could get away with really shitty technique, sorry for that, on a 7 French dilator. Like I could just jam that in like I just did, and you'll get away with it. You might think you're a superstar at central lines. You try that with a dialysis catheter, or what's worse, a 14 French for a percutaneous pigtail in the chest, and you will destroy the wire and dilator and potentially parts of the patient's body. So learn to do it right every central line so that when you're on a big line, you don't get it wrong. Now, what happens if you just keep reaching resistance, but it does still rack?
It's racking.
But it just can't get past it. You're trying, you're worried you're going to do something evil. At that point, you need to rip the subcutaneous tissue, and that's the next micro skill, and it's called twist and rip. And what Rob's going to do is he's going to make sure he can still rack.
Racking.
Good. And now he's going to put gentle inwards pressure.
So pushing in.
Yep. And now you're going to twist that dilator to actually wrap subcutaneous tissue around the dilator shaft.
Like how many times do I twist it?
4 or 5 times until you can really feel a lot of resistance, like it doesn't want to twist anymore. Okay. And now rip it out.
All the way out?
Yep, about 1 inch on that dilator. Pull back. What that's going to do is rip all the tissue that was wrapped around that dilator. Now do it again. Push in until you reach resistance. Rack your wire. Twist, twist, twist. Get a lot of, you'll know it's there because there's friction on the twisting now, and then rip it out. Each time you rip, you're ripping the subcutaneous tissue and making your tract further and further along. And you'll keep doing that. You'll push in, rack, twist, rip, go back in until you're in the vessel. That's the twist and rip. Let's review it. All right, so gentle inwards pressure, check with a rack, and now twist the dilator until I can really feel tissue wrapped around it, and now rip it out. I guess we don't have the ripping it out, but that's okay. All right, so now, the next step, perfect. All right, so now let's say you've gotten the dilation all the way in.
Okay.
Yep. And you can go all the way in. You'll know when you've lost resistance and you're in the vessel. You don't have to go all the way in on these dilators.
Okay.
Now, the taking it out is important too. This is the pinch and pull. Rob, do it wrong. Just watching it gives me heartburn.
Satisfying.
All right, so the problem with these dilators is the 7 French you'll get away with it, but on big dilators, the friction of pulling it out will yank your wire out of the vessel and potentially yank the entire thing out like a ripcord. So the way it's done is the pinch and pull. You pinch about 1 inch away from the back of the dilator, and then you pull to your fingers. And now you re-pinch about 1 inch away, pull to your fingers. Re-pinch, pull. And this is keeping...
And I'm grabbing up here at the...
Exactly right. And this is keeping the wire stationary in the vessel. Yep. Great. All right, let's review that. Leave that in, Rob. I want to show them one more thing after this video. All right, there's the pinch and pull. You pinch about 1 inch away, 1 inch 2, and then you pull towards your fingers, re-pinch. This keeps the wire stationary. All right, one thing that we don't have a video for, Rob, but I think it's absolutely key. I realize now we have to get this point across. I see people dilating without either holding the wire or they're holding it, but they're letting the wire move as the dilator goes in. They're letting the dilator pull the wire. You can never do that. The wire needs to never move. The wire stays stationary. Only the dilator is allowed to move on the wire. So you have to lock that wire in space, and the dilator moves in. The wire never moves. If you're allowing, especially with big dilator setups, your wire to come in with your dilator, you will backwall the vessel, because the only thing keeping you safe is the fact that the wire is being forced into the center of the vessel and the dilator is moving on top of it. If you allow the wire to move with the dilator, you will backwall the vessel on something like an HD cath, or if any of you are doing ECMO.
Question for you. So this afternoon, we're going to do a live M&M, a case of cardiogenic shock. And one of the things is that I didn't want to put in an art line and destroy this vessel for the, and you and I were talking last night, well, just go on the left.
Left groins are usually a pretty safe place to go.
If I'm going on the left groin, I'm a righty, and if I'm on the left side, it's kind of gymnastics. Should I just lean over?
That's exactly right. So if you're a right-handed operator, you always want to be on the patient's right side, and it gives you access to both groins very easily. I could access here, or I could just reach over with my ultrasound probe and access there. So that's exactly right.
All right. Thank you, Scotty.
All right. Thank you all.
And then, of course, you put this thing in.